Imagine having it all, the billions, the penthouse overlooking Central Park, the perfect life. But what if that perfect life was built on a devastating secret? This is the story of a tech mogul who flew too close to the sun, and the brilliant, 9 months pregnant wife who single-handedly clipped his wings. The water in the Maldives wasn't just blue. From the deck of his private overwater bungalow at the Serafina Resort, Conrad Beaumont felt like a king surveying his kingdom. Beside him, the beautiful Kira Jensen laughed, her hand resting on her barely there baby bump. Conrad's paradise was about to become his prison, and the first clang of the bars shutting was the quiet, humiliating sound of a credit card being declined. Conrad Beaumont didn't just live the American dream. His life was a carefully curated collection of success symbols, a sprawling penthouse overlooking Central Park, a garage filled with cars that whispered of power rather than shouted, and a beautiful, intelligent wife, Lorraine Davenport. Lorraine was no mere socialite. With a law degree from Yale and a mind as sharp as a shard of glass, she had been Nexus Bay's first general counsel. But 3 years ago, after a difficult journey with fertility treatments, Lorraine had stepped back. Her new project, the one that mattered most, was growing inside her, their son. In the final weeks of her pregnancy, a subtle chill had crept into their opulent home. She noticed the small things. The second phone that was always silenced and face down. The scent of a perfume, a light floral scent, nothing like her own sandalwood and vanilla, that clung faintly to his shirts. The lie that broke the dam was a simple one. It's last minute, a real pain, but it's $1 billion deal. Lorraine smiled, a placid, gentle expression that betrayed none of the acid churning in her stomach. As soon as the penthouse door clicked shut, her serene mask crumbled. His digital security was flawless. She scrolled through the recent activity. A dinner reservation for 2 at a place he'd told her was booked solid for months. Strange, since they had a fully stocked nursery, but it was the last item that made the air leave her lungs in a silent scream. A charge from Boucher and Fields, their private jeweler. It was a push present, a gift for a new mother. But the details were horrifyingly specific. The engraving on the disc read, "For KJ. Our adventure begins. Love, C. KJ." Kira Jensen, a bright, ambitious marketing associate from Nexus Pay. A fleeting moment, but she had filed it away. A splinter of unease in the back of her mind. It wasn't Singapore. The baby boutique, the push present. This wasn't just an affair. The grief was a physical weight pressing down on her chest, threatening to suffocate her. She felt the baby kick, a strong, insistent reminder of the life she was carrying, the family she thought she was building. It hardened, solidifying into something else. Something cold, sharp, and diamond hard. Her father hadn't raised a victim. He had forgotten who he had married. He had forgotten that the woman who built the legal walls of his fortress knew exactly where all the back doors were. He wanted a Babymoon. Her first call was not to a divorce lawyer. It was to her father. "I need you to make a few calls for me. We need to liquidate some private assets and move them quietly." Arthur Davenport was a man who moved through the world with the quiet confidence of someone who had never lost a fight he cared about. Retired from the helm of a white shoe law firm that bore his name, he now spent his days managing his vast estate in Connecticut. But his mind had lost none of its predatory sharpness. He didn't offer condolences or platitudes. Arthur Davenport dealt in strategy, not sympathy. When she was finished, there was a brief pause. "The fool," Arthur said, his voice a low rumble. "He flew too close to the sun with another man's wings." "Your wings, Lorraine. What is your objective?" "I want him crippled, Dad," she replied, the words tasting like metal in her mouth. "I want him isolated and powerless. I want him to understand what it feels like to have the world you built dissolve into thin air." "An admirable goal," Arthur said, a hint of pride in his tone. "Strategic, not emotional. Good. Here is what we will do. For the next 48 hours, Lorraine's penthouse became a war room. Arthur drove in from Connecticut, bringing with him a man named Peterson, a former MI6 agent who now ran a discreet private security firm in London specializing in asset protection and recovery. Peterson was a pale, unassuming man in a rumpled suit who looked more like an accountant than a spy, but his eyes missed nothing. Lorraine, as the co-signer on nearly every account and the architect of their family trust, held more power than Conrad had ever bothered to remember. Nexus Pay stock, brokerage accounts, our main checking. The offshore accounts in the Caymans and Switzerland are in his name only. Those will be harder to touch directly. We don't need to touch them, Lorraine countered. His passport. Conrad Beaumont, the global jet-setter, is nothing without it. Peterson leaned forward. She can file a police report stating that in a fit of rage, he stormed out of the house, taking his documents, and she hasn't been able to reach him since. A process that can take weeks. Arthur looked at his daughter with newfound respect. Phase 1, Financial Strangulation. She calmly explained that due to a serious family emergency and concerns over Conrad's mental stability, she was invoking her rights as trustee. Within an hour, billions of dollars in assets were moved from their joint accounts into a new trust in her name only. She was the primary holder of their coveted Centurion card, the mythical black card. Conrad's was a supplementary card. I'm reporting my husband's card as stolen, she said, her voice laced with practiced distress. His wallet was taken. Please cancel it immediately and flag all charges. In the space of 3 hours, Conrad Beaumont's wallet, filled with plastic that could buy a skyscraper, became utterly useless. Phase 2, Digital Isolation. Peterson handled the next part. He used a contact within a telecom provider to have Conrad's primary U.S. cell number suspended, citing a security breach. Without his primary number, he couldn't receive the two-factor authentication codes needed to access his online banking, his crypto wallets, or even his corporate email. He was digitally castrated. Phase 3, The Narrative. This was Lorraine's masterstroke. She didn't want Conrad to look like a cheating husband. It was a more effective way to neutralize him and garner sympathy. She sent a carefully worded email to the board of Nexus Pay and a few key, trusted friends. Subject, personal update and request for discretion. Dear all, I'm writing to you with a heavy heart. He has become erratic and paranoid, and against my and his doctor's advice, he has left the country without notice. I am unable to reach him, and I am deeply concerned for his well-being. I am working with the relevant authorities to ensure his safety. She had built an empire with him. Now, she had taken it back. Meanwhile, 8,000 miles away, Conrad Beaumont was ordering another bottle of champagne, utterly oblivious that his kingdom had already fallen. They snorkeled with sea turtles, had massages on a secluded sandbank, and dined under the stars, their feet in the warm sand. He felt free. She was effusively grateful, endlessly adoring. She talked excitedly about their baby, a girl she hoped they would raise between New York and maybe a house in the Hamptons. It was the exact fantasy Conrad wanted to hear. Lorraine just doesn't get this. She'd be analyzing the resort's profit margins. You just enjoy it. You live in the moment. The fantasy shattered the next evening at Azure, the resort's signature underwater restaurant. It was breathtaking. It was, even for Conrad, an eye-watering sum. He handed the waiter his Amex Centurion card without a second thought. The waiter, a polite man named Ferris, returned a few minutes later, his expression apologetic. I'm very sorry, Mr. Beaumont. The card has been declined. Conrad frowned. A flicker of annoyance. Use this one. My apologies again, sir. This one as well. And the MasterCard. He could feel Kira's gaze on him, her perfect smile faltering. Several diners turned to look. There must be a problem with your system. If you would be so kind as to speak with our resort manager, Mr. Hassan, he can assist you in his office. The walk from the underwater restaurant to the manager's office was the longest of Conrad's life. The hushed whispers of the other guests followed him like a trail of smoke. Mr. Hassan was a distinguished man with silvering hair and an impeccably tailored suit. His office was a sanctuary of calm, with mahogany furniture and views of a tranquil lagoon. Mr. Beaumont, he began, his tone courteous but firm. As it stands, your entire stay, including the seaplane transfer, is currently unpaid. Conrad stared at him, dumbfounded. That's impossible. There are millions of dollars in those accounts. That may be, but we are unable to access them, Mr. Hassan replied. He dialed the number, but it wouldn't connect. Call failed. He tried again. A code has been sent to your registered mobile number. He waited. No code arrived. A cold dread, slick and oily, began to seep into his veins. He tried to log into his Nexus Pay email. Password incorrect. He knew it was the right password. Recovery instructions sent to your primary contact email and phone number. He was locked out. Kira looked at him, her eyes wide with a dawning panic. The bill for their stay was already approaching 6 figures. Mr. Beaumont, our policy in these situations is quite clear. However, all non-essential services will be suspended. Your access to the spa, the fine dining restaurants, and the water sports facilities will be revoked. They had his passport. My wife, she must have. I need to call New York. The responses were all unnervingly similar. His assistant, sounding flustered, Conrad? Oh my God, are you okay? Lorraine told us you were having some kind of breakdown. We've all been so worried. No one would help him. He wasn't a man in trouble. He finally hung up the phone, his hand trembling. He had no money, no working phone, no way to access his empire, and no way to leave. The beautiful turquoise water outside the window suddenly looked like the walls of a very luxurious, very expensive prison. The adoration in her eyes was gone, replaced by something else, fear and a cold, calculating assessment. Welcome to hell. Led by 2 silent security guards, Conrad and Kira traversed a path he never knew existed, leaving behind the manicured gardens and infinity pools for a world of concrete walkways, humming generators, and the steamy, industrial scent of the laundry facility. It was the resort's engine room, a place of work and function never meant to be seen by the gilded class of guests. A small, barred window offered not a vista of the turquoise ocean, but a close-up view of a massive, perpetually spinning exhaust fan. The air was thick with humidity and the faint smell of bleach. The paradise they had inhabited was a stage set, and they had just been unceremoniously shoved backstage. He would grab his dead phone and glare at the black screen as if his sheer force of will could resurrect it. It's illegal. I'll have your job. I will buy this entire godforsaken island and turn it into a parking lot. As soon as your bill is settled, Mr. Beaumont, you are free to go, he would reply, his voice a maddening oasis of calm. Kira watched this display with a growing sense of dread. He wasn't a king. By the second day, the silence between them in the small room had become a weapon. It was thick with unspoken accusations, his blame, her resentment. She was sitting on the edge of her bed, her hand resting protectively on her stomach. Because pacing and yelling at the manager isn't working. He whirled on her, his eyes wild. This is Lorraine. She's lost her mind. It's the pregnancy hormones. They've made her completely irrational. She's crazy. Kira let out a short, bitter laugh. Crazy? Or the only sane one among us? She seems to have thought of everything with remarkable clarity. You lied to a 9 months pregnant woman, Conrad. You lied to her face, then ran off with your younger, also pregnant mistress to a tropical paradise. What did you think was going to happen? Did you truly believe that Lorraine Davenport, the legal eagle who helped build your entire company, would just sit at home and knit booties? The raw truth of her words was like a slap. He had been arrogant. He had seen Lorraine's pregnancy as a state of weakness, a distraction that would allow him to operate with impunity. He had forgotten the formidable intellect he had once so admired. It was all going to be handled, he shot back, his voice defensive. You were protecting yourself from a difficult conversation. You sold me a future that was apparently built on a foundation of lies. And what about your future? He sneered, lashing out. You think I don't know what this was about? You saw a ticket to the top and you took it. And what's wrong with that? She screamed, tears of rage and self-pity welling in her eyes. Isn't that how your world works? Everyone taking what they can. I'm a punchline. And you are willing to risk it all for this? For us? The us that had felt so special and thrilling under the Maldivian sun was now revealed for what it was, a toxic cocktail of his ego and her ambition. David, thank God, it's Conrad. Listen, I'm in serious trouble. Instead, his voice was cautious, laced with a patronizing sympathy that made Conrad's skin crawl. Lorraine called us. She told us you were under a lot of strain, that you'd snapped. We've all been so worried about you, man. Okay, pal. Okay. Just focus on getting some rest. Don't worry about the company, we're handling things here. The most important thing is for you to come home and get the help you need. The phrase echoed in Conrad's ear. It was the masterstroke. He sent a pleading message through David, a final, desperate gambit. Tell her I need to talk to her. It's about the baby, our son. He spent hours waiting by the phone in Mr. Hassan's office, a supplicant under the manager's watchful gaze. Lorraine, he breathed, his voice a ragged mix of hope and dread. Conrad. There's no mistake, Conrad, she replied, each word a perfectly polished stone. A consequence for what? A little trip? This is disproportionate, Lorraine. It's insane. You are in the Maldives with your pregnant mistress on what you have the audacity to call a Babymoon, while I am days away from giving birth to our son. You stood in our home, looked me in the eye, and you lied. It's complicated, he stammered, the words feeble even to his own ears. It's remarkably simple, she cut him off, her voice like steel. Our financial empire was built on a foundation of mutual trust. You dynamited that foundation. You should be more concerned about your immediate problems. Your hotel bill, for instance. And your passport. I was so worried when you stormed out that I felt compelled to report it stolen. He felt the last of his strength drain away, leaving him hollow. She had anticipated everything. This wasn't an emotional outburst. This was an execution. Don't do this. It's already done, she said softly. Then, she twisted the knife. By the way, Conrad, my father's security consultant, a very thorough man, did a little digging into your KJ. He thought it prudent to check her network activity at Nexus Pay. Conrad's blood ran cold. He glanced over at Kira, who was watching him from the doorway of the office, her face pale. She's been sending it all to a shell account that my consultant traced back quite easily, I might add to a venture capital firm. A firm run by Richard Kessler. Kessler. His nemesis. The rival who had been trying to gut his company for years. Lorraine let the silence stretch, allowing the full implication to sink in. You brought a corporate spy into our lives. You gave her access that compromised our entire company. The company that I am still a major shareholder in. I imagine they'll have some questions for you, if you ever make it back. The line clicked dead. Conrad stood frozen, the silent receiver pressed to his ear. He was a fool, a dupe. The silence that followed the dead phone line was more profound than any sound Conrad had ever heard. It was a vacuum, pulling all the air, all the heat, all the arrogance from the room. He slowly, mechanically placed the receiver back into its cradle. The small plastic click echoed like a gunshot in his mind, the sound of a door slamming shut on his entire existence. But as he turned his head, his gaze fell upon Kira Jensen, and he realized the abyss had multiple floors. It was a response to his own actions. But Kira's betrayal was of a different sort. It was parasitic. She hadn't just cheated with him, she had used him as a host, a tool, a stepping stone in a grubby little game of corporate espionage. He whispered the word, a plume of toxic smoke. He felt no rage, only a vast, glacial emptiness. The whole time. Every word, every touch. It was all a lie. Kira flinched, scrambling backward until her back hit the wall. The tears that streamed down her face were real now, born not of manipulation, but of pure panic. "I had to," she sobbed, the words tumbling out in a desperate, pathetic rush. "Richard Kessler, he promised me everything. He said you were a dinosaur, that Nexus Pay was a sinking ship. He promised me a senior position, a real future. Security." Conrad's laugh started as a low tremor and erupted into a full-blown, unhinged cackle. It was the sound of a man breaking apart at the seams. "You've secured a federal indictment. You're finished. We're both finished." Mr. Hassan, who had stood by with the impassive professionalism of a mortician, finally stepped forward. He had overheard every word, his expression unchanging. "Miss Jensen," he stated, his voice as calm and unyielding as the tide. "Given this new information, and the fact that you are an accomplice in Mr. Beaumont's financial predicament at our resort, I'm afraid your position here is also untenable. Both of your passports will remain in our custody pending further instructions." The shared prison cell of their staff quarters room became a new circle of hell. The air, already thick with the scent of industrial detergent from the nearby laundry, now crackled with silent loathing. Conrad would lie awake on his lumpy mattress, listening to the rhythmic churning of the giant washing machines, the sound of metronome counting down the seconds of his failure. He replayed every conversation, every flirtatious email, every late-night rendezvous with Kira, searching for the signs he had so blissfully ignored. They were all there, hiding in plain sight. He dialed the number for the U.S. Embassy in Colombo, Sri Lanka. "My name is Conrad Beaumont," he began, trying to inject authority into his tone. "I'm an American citizen, and I am being held against my will in the Maldives." "Sir, are you in any physical danger?" the officer asked, a standard checklist question. "No, not physical danger, but they've confiscated my passport. They won't let me leave." "And why have they taken your passport, sir?" The words were humiliating to say out loud. "It's a dispute over a hotel bill." "I see," the officer said, and Conrad could practically hear him mentally filing this under rich idiot problems. "I can't." Conrad's voice cracked with desperation. "That's the point. My accounts are frozen. My credit cards have been cancelled. My wife." "Ah, yes," the officer cut in, his voice now taking on a new, cooler efficiency. "We are aware of the situation with your passport, Mr. Beaumont. Sir, that may be. However, until the reporting party officially retracts their report, or the flag is cleared through an investigation, we cannot issue you an emergency travel document. The system simply won't allow it." Conrad slammed the phone down. He couldn't leave to get access to money without his passport. He couldn't get his passport without clearing the flag. And he couldn't clear the flag without the cooperation of the very person who had put him in this cage. He was no longer Conrad Beaumont, titan of industry. His deliverance, when it came, was as humbling as his fall. The next afternoon, Mr. Hassan summoned him. "Mr. Beaumont, we received an anonymous wire transfer moments ago for the full outstanding balance of your bill." A surge of adrenaline, of pure, unadulterated relief, shot through Conrad. Furthermore, Mr. Hassan continued, sliding a single sheet of paper across his mahogany desk. It is for a flight from Malé to New York, connecting through Dubai. It departs tomorrow morning at 6:05 a.m. He paused, letting the information sink in. The relief curdled into shame. He looked Conrad squarely in the eye. At the airport, he was just another face in the swarming, chaotic crowd. He stood in the long, snaking security line, the press of humanity around him a stark contrast to the sterile solitude of the private terminals he was used to. On the plane, he was wedged into a middle seat in row 42, his knees pressed against the seat in front of him, a crying baby behind him, and a man with a hacking cough beside him. The flight attendant handed him a plastic-wrapped tray of lukewarm chicken and rice, and he ate it because he was starving. The recycled air and the low drone of the engines became the soundtrack to his internal reckoning. He had seen her intelligence as an asset to his company but had forgotten it was an integral part of her being, a weapon she could wield with terrifying precision. His anger had evaporated, replaced by a cold, primal fear of the woman he had married. Unshaven, hollow-eyed, his designer suit rumpled and stained. The elevator ride-up was silent, the penthouse door opening into a cavern of echoes. The place was sterilized. All of Lorraine's personal touches were gone. Her collection of first-edition novels, the abstract art she'd chosen for the foyer, the silver-framed photos of their wedding, their travels, their life all gone. He pushed it open, and his breath caught in his throat. It was utterly bare. The hand-painted mural of the night sky was gone, painted over in a stark, clinical white. The crib, the changing table, the rocking chair where he had once imagined himself reading to his son all had vanished. It was an erasure, a statement that the future he had betrayed would never come to pass. On the cold marble of the kitchen island, stark against the gray stone, lay a single, thick manila envelope. Legal documents. The top one was a petition for divorce, citing infidelity and moral turpitude. Beneath that, a temporary restraining order, a legal wall keeping him 500 feet from Lorraine and her father's estate in Connecticut. And under that, a formal notice of an emergency meeting of the board of directors of Nexus Pay, its purpose stated in cold, corporate language, to discuss the immediate removal of CEO Conrad Beaumont for gross negligence and breach of fiduciary duty. He felt the floor tilt. It was not a legal document, but a piece of thick, cream-colored stationery. Her elegant, cursive handwriting was the final, precise incision. By now, you understand. The board meeting is tomorrow at 10 a.m. I suggest you attend. They have copies of Kira's emails and a signed affidavit from her, secured by my father's lawyers in exchange for leniency in her own legal troubles. There is, however, another option. I am exercising my right as a co-founder and major shareholder to take over as interim CEO. If you agree to my terms, a swift, uncontested divorce, a full transfer of the family trust and the New York property to me, and your complete and permanent resignation from Nexus Pay, I will ensure you walk away with a small percentage of your original stock. This is the new reality. William Arthur Davenport was born 2 days ago. He is healthy, and he is beautiful. You will not be a part of his life. William Arthur Davenport. Her name, her father's name. His son, branded with the sigil of the dynasty that had crushed him. He didn't just sink to the floor, he collapsed, the strength leaving his bones, the world narrowing to a single point of blinding, absolute defeat. He was a king with no kingdom, a father with no son, a man with no name but the one he had disgraced. And so Conrad's gilded world came crashing down, not with a bang, but with the quiet, calculated click of a woman reclaiming her power. It begins anew, in the light of her own. Years later, Nexus Pay, under the steady and visionary leadership of CEO Lorraine Davenport, became more successful than ever. Lorraine's story is a powerful reminder that from the deepest betrayals can rise the greatest strength. If you believe in the power of new beginnings and stories of incredible resilience, we invite you to join our community. Subscribe to our channel for more unforgettable true-life dramas that will leave you thinking long after the story ends. You won't want to miss what we have in store.